Hello everyone, no respawns, hope you're doing well. So I am back in the UK. For those who haven't been paying attention or just didn't listen or don't follow on Twitter, I have been in Serbia for the last week, since basically Monday, well Tuesday, and haven't been able to build stuff. I was going to build another build video last week, but I've just been too busy before I actually flew off. However, it did mean that I had loads of ideas stored up. So this is a floating house. Now, as I mentioned before, I like using things like other games, and Pinterest especially is really useful as well. If you don't use Pinterest, you don't have an account, just it's really useful basically for kind of finding cool stuff. And I saw a couple of floating houses, but also what I saw in the houses, they reminded me of the game The Flame in the Flood. For those who haven't played, it's a really cool roguelike. It's not massively replayability, but you know, I got a good 15-20 hours on it playing it. It was quite fun, and you have this like kind of floating raft that you eventually build up, and it almost looks like a little house eventually. Well, it's got a tent, but yeah, it looks cool basically. And I kind of wanted to make something like that, but in house format, which is what I'm making here. It's pretty straightforward, to be honest. I just built like a kind of weirdly unique house, as you can see. Put in my weird what do we call it? Windmill. That's what they're called, windmills. Evidently, I'm out of practice for my 4 or 5 days of not making a video. This is actually the longest period I've ever gone without making a video, and it makes me feel very, very twitchy and weird. I don't like it. So expect me to make up for it, basically. But yes, this is quite cool. I quite enjoyed this. It was quite fun. So the whole premise is it's going to be a house floating on a load of barrels. Spoiler, but of course you can see that in the thumbnail, and it looks rather cool. It was fun, similar to my other, because this is obviously in Spectacle Island, which is where I kind of do all my standalone builds to an extent. And I've basically, this is another build that could potentially be quite a funky little survival shack if you want. I'd maybe make it a little bit bigger, use the same techniques, but just kind of make it wider, because it is a pretty small little house, but it's quite a nice idea, especially maybe if you're either playing on PC or Xbox, maybe potentially have a few more options available where you could build out into the ocean. I mean, I think you can do it on PS4 as well. It's just a little bit harder, because I think you have to place down a workbench using a mod or something like that. I forget how it works. But basically, because there are only few settlements that actually have this much water, so it might be, maybe like, for example, you could do it in Nordhagen or something. But it works well in Spectacle Island, and it looks cool. So I'm being a little bit, kind of just custom with all my bits. Like, for example, I'm not necessarily using the normal snapping elements, just because I wanted things to look a little bit different. I wanted this little kind of, I guess, walkway, what's the word? Decking, there we go. I wanted this decking in front. For some reason, this was having a nightmare getting this in here, but I do get it in eventually. It's just, it took me a long time. Longer time when it's not sped up twice as fast. I don't know why it was being a dickhead, but oh well, it's fine, it's fine. Fun decorating this one, as I always do. It actually has a little boat in front of it as well, using one of the swan boats from, what do we call it? The place with swan, can't remember what it's called. The Commons? Something Commons? Whatever, the Commons, where you find Swan, who is the giant super mutant behemoth. No, that's somewhere else. Anyway, it looks really cool, and they're in the USO mod, and you can build on them. I will point it out, don't worry, because I don't actually show you me building it, but it looks really, really cool. So as you can see, the whole build itself, in terms of the structure of this, very, very straightforward. I really like, I was looking, I had one of the images open for one of the houses that I saw on Pinterest, and I was like, right, okay, so I wasn't copying it as such, but I was like, it's got like this little like, for example, this little overhang kind of bit over the decking on the outside was just because that's what it looked like, or they had something similar in the build, and I thought it looked really cool. And also the windmill as well, same kind of thing. I just thought that windmill isn't actually wired up to anything in my build, because I've got 2 lights, but they actually use the custom lights from custom vanilla assets, so they don't actually draw any power, but it looks cool. I like the idea of that, and it was quite fun. So alongside being quite a funky little floating house, this is in itself quite a cool little build. So in, just very essential or important, in the USO mod you do have, as you can see, this very, very long pillar, but if you wanted, you could also use scaffolding. Now, I'm going to quickly show you, it's a bit complex, actually, how I did the barrels to make them kind of quite straightforward. So basically, it's a bit hard here because of the stupid land, so as soon as I can get confused, because basically my rugs aren't settling on the rugs because they're currently trying to go up the hill. So maybe move it to somewhere a little bit flatter. Let's see, select all. So that one's not working for whatever reason, because fuck me, it's fine. The rugs are sticking together. But basically, I just used 2 of the long nav mesh rugs and then put 1 rug in the center and then 4 of these bigger rugs on the outside, which you will see in a sec. I do recommend, and you'll see what I do in a moment, putting some kind of item so you can track where the rugs are. I just forgot to do it. This is the same technique, those of you as in my last video, my bunker video, where I basically put these, well, not these, I actually ended up putting barrels, I think, on the edges of rugs to allow me to decorate the inside of the bunker, because it just makes the whole thing a little bit easier. It's 4 of them, by the way. The good thing is you can kind of just easily tweak them around, and potentially you don't even need to do this. You could actually go around, like you could just use that long pillar to kind of pillar glitch the barrels that I'm going to use underneath, but this was easier, and it also means you get them actually inside as well, which you'll see what I mean in a sec. The reason for that ball was so I could just track how big it was. This is more just fiddly. It was more me not planning ahead how I was going to do it. I was like, wait, how am I doing this? All right, so here I go. Oh, right, so that's the center one now, so I know where it is. And I just plop these at the edge. And then again, with the other 3, and then there's one at the back as well. So yada, yada, yada. Gorgeous. You don't have to be, I was initially being quite careful with making sure the rugs weren't on top of each other, because the reason being is it would mean the barrels were slightly higher up. You don't need to worry, because I do actually sink the barrels a little bit into the building, so you don't really notice if they're at slightly different heights. Also, the barrels, as you'll see in a minute, are just generally different sizes anyway. Still looks fine though. So there we go. I don't show you me putting all the barrels in as well, because it takes fucking ages. But the process, as you can see right there, you can see kind of with the chairs hanging out. I'd recommend, it's obviously potentially not very clear here at all, but you'll want the barrels slightly poking out, as you'll see how I've done it. It takes a lot of fiddling, but it is worth it because it does look quite nice, and there probably are better ways of doing it, but I'm one of those people that I just decided midway through doing it. I'm like, right, that's how I'm doing it from now on, until I find a more efficient way later on. So there we go. These nav mesh rugs are so useful. Imagine, back in the day, pre-invisible rugs, doing this, you'd end up just having a load of carpets that look really stupid. So that's the back bit where the windmill is going to be. Spoiler, I did actually have to add another one in and move it back and extend it, but I don't show you that because it's just me doing what I'm doing now, but just repeating it over again. So the barrels are pretty simple, and I'll show you a couple, because it took me about 15 minutes to do all of them, which I don't want 15 minutes of footage just being that. I'd recommend using repeating of the same style of barrels. You may notice as well, those 2 barrels are very much bigger. So I used about 5 of them, which were quite perfect. But it doesn't really matter that they're different heights, because the thing is, it said you're going to sink the bottom of the wood a little bit into it, because it looks better that way. And so it won't look like they're floating over the barrels. It looks pretty grand. Also, just make sure you pay attention not to accidentally, make sure they're straight, basically, because you see, it's very easy for you to go off at an angle and there'll be a giant space. So here they are. I also left a centerpiece. The reason being is because I was getting bored, so I just left out the center, because you don't really worry about it so much. And obviously, you also need to make sure that you make it a little bit longer, which is what I'm doing here. Like this. So there we go, there's my little contraption of me, what the fuck am I talking about? My elaborate way of placing these barrels that works really, really well. Also, pay attention to the house, but I'm going to demonstrate at the moment you can actually move the house. See, there we go, see, I've sunk the barrels in a little bit, they're poking out the side. You see, there's a little bit of space at the back there. I had to just basically pull the rugs back and then just put another one on, as you'll see when I lift this up. I also glitched in some rugs. They actually got attached to the pop for some reason. But as you can see, you can quite easily move the house backwards, which is what I did. I had to move these out first, though. Move them backwards so I can move the back, because it was quite close to the land, and I actually wanted it a little bit further out so I can have a bit of a bridge, so it feels like a floating house. So there we go. Look at that. Works wonders, and it looks really, really nice. With the floating on the barrels, it's believable, but it was, because annoyingly you can't build on them as such, or maybe you can. I tried it didn't work, so I changed my mind. There we go. So now I'm just going to build my little rampway. I've mentioned before how much I love ramps. We're actually right next to one of my favourite builds, which is my boathouse. Great boathouse that is. This is actually better than the boathouse, because I seem to be just getting better recently, so this is pretty grand as well. It's nice to be back, people. I mean, it's only been a few days, but to me it was a lifetime. It's pretty grand, so doing this. Decorating this was quite fun as well, but because I just happened to build quite a small house, I didn't have much space to work with, which is a bit annoying. Normally I build something a little bit bigger and open, and also the doorway had to open in because the open out doors messed with my lights. But I'll point that out so you know what I'm doing. I like building ramps. I've mentioned this dozens of times before. It's really fun. Ramps, walkways, weird bespoke stairs. It's just one of those things that it's never not satisfying to do as far as I'm concerned. Look at this, look at this. And I usually like make them up as I go along, really just kind of on the fly, and it's great fun. So if you notice here, the reason it's going red is because I've got that chain of rugs leading up to where I put the barrels in, but it's fine because then I can just pop it on and I'll shade from the side. Because this is all sinking into the water, it doesn't matter that these invisible rugs are me poking out, because you'll just happen to float on the water a little bit if you happen to walk off the edge, but it's fine. The idea being that everything's floating, so for example, these boxes are floating, you know. But you can use whatever you like. I'll give you that permission. You don't have to use these boxes. You can do whatever you like. You do you. You could even potentially not use my long ramp. You could take off like those rugs that I put on the start, and then just use one of the like shack bridges or something like that. But I chose to do it this way because, shut up, it looks good, yeah? What about broken thingamajig? Oh, I love things like this. I really, seriously, highly recommend to keep the praise. Definitely, ever since, because I go through periods with Fallout where I just don't have any ideas, right? Ever since I started, like, actively, whenever I want to do a build, rather than just sitting there trying to think of something, actually looking at other games, and especially Pinterest, just, you know, like, type a phrase into Pinterest, right? It's been used so much, like, you know, Mad Max, post-apocalyptic town, shack, things like that, and you'll get so many cool ideas. For people, there's loads of concept art on there. For, you know, for example, especially wargaming sets and things like that. It's really useful. Just kind of gives you a nice kind of launching point, and just kind of allows you, just makes the whole process a little bit more, just gives you that kind of initial boost. That was always my problem. You know, it's like, how can I make something unique? And then I would just sit there at my desk in the office, or kind of, you know, in a pub, and be like, oh, I don't know. And then I'd be like, ha. Do a really weird English person thinking what French people sound like, like that. You do that, you have to do that, and then it looks really good. Sorry, I've been fucking working all week. I've been getting up about 5:30 every morning in a hotel, asking them to give me a wake-up call. It's been horrible. Right, so here is my little thing. I made, I really like that swan boat. So that just, it's so good. And the little fishing area that you can kind of, you know, it's amazing. And it's a really nice little house. Quite cozy in a strange kind of way, and still fits the kind of post-apocalyptic look. I can especially see this on, Far Harbour. This would potentially work really well, especially with the fishing element. And I just like the idea that, you know, he just dragged one of these swan boats. So look at it, looks really cool. And you can build on these, by the way, as well, so you don't have to worry about glitching stuff on. It's got a little radio, loads of beer, loads of fishing rods. It's grand. Baseball bat for knocking in. I had the idea that Mirelurks might try and jump up so we could smack them. Wouldn't kill them, but would probably dissuade them. There's not much space to build over in these little decking area. So just, if you want to extend it, do it. I could potentially make a bigger one of these as well. It could look really cool. But there we go. Also, notice there's a Todd Howard painting in USO now. In decorations, clutter, and there's desk pictures, FYI. If you want Todd in a bit more of a reserved place in your house rather than a giant picture. But anyway, hope you guys liked that and enjoyed the fact that I'm back again. As always, follow me on Twitter at norespawns, and I have a new video up soon. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.